Hey guys, welcome to N64 Funtime. Got a fun video for you today. We're getting closer and closer to Halloween. It's starting to get cold outside, the leaves are starting to change, and we're just starting to get that Halloween feel. So what I wanted to do is I just wanted to talk about some of the movies that I enjoy watching around the Halloween holiday season. So yeah, if you're in the mood for some movies, make some popcorn, cuddle up on the couch. Maybe you want to watch a scary movie. Maybe you just want to watch a Halloween movie. I got a few movies that are some of my favorites. I'm just going to share them with you. And if you haven't seen any of them before, please watch some of them. They're all great movies. There are so many more that I'm not going to talk about that are good Halloween movies. There's just so many to talk about. So I picked out a few of some of my favorites, and I hope you enjoy them. But the first one I want to talk about is a little bit more of a modern movie, and it's actually kind of a pseudo-zombie movie, more of like your raging zombie movie, but it's called Quarantine. Now, it's kind of a found footage film, and I know that can turn off a lot of people, can make some people motion sick, but it is such a good movie because the aspect behind why these people are kind of zombie-like, to me, is kind of believable. It's more of I don't want to spoil anything for you, but it's kind of like it's very claustrophobic kind of zombie movie with the raging zombie kind of genre. It was also a Spanish film first called Record, and then later translated with the English version. I think the Spanish version, the Record movie, is better because the acting is better, and then the final scene that you have, I think, is a little bit better in the Spanish version. But if you don't like subtitles, watch the Quarantine movie. It's actually almost shot for shot the exact same movie, so you're not going to miss much. You might not like the actors as much, but it's a really, really good movie if you haven't seen it. So the Quarantine or Record movie. The sequels aren't as good, so just watch either Quarantine or the first Record. The second movie that I wanted to talk about, since we're kind of on the raging zombie, the main movie that started the raging zombie genre, and that's 28 Days Later. Most of you have probably seen this film. I believe it's a British film. But if you haven't seen 28 Days Later, and you like zombie movies, or if you're interested in zombie movies or something like that, it is such a good movie. It doesn't necessarily have a Halloween feel, but it's very kind of dreary. It's kind of more or less your typical zombie movie, but it introduces the raging zombie, the fast zombie, the exciting zombie, which I actually really like those movies. The next movie I want to talk about is The Descent. Again, I believe this is a British movie, but as far as like horror movies go, or like thriller movies, or like scary movies, I love The Descent. If you haven't seen it, you have to see it. I can't say enough good things about this movie. It starts off maybe kind of slow. There's this build up, and you're like, well, what's going to happen? Yeah, this is very intense, and then all of a sudden it makes a switch to kind of your normal kind of monster movie, and it just, the way that it's shot, the way that it builds up to kind of this last scene of the movie is very, very good. The Descent, if you haven't seen it, please watch it. I can't recommend that movie enough. So let's go back a little bit. Those are kind of some new movies that I wanted to share with you, some movies that are maybe early 2000s, but if you want to go back a little bit and watch a little bit of older movies, and you have kids. Now, this is a little bit of a scary movie if you have young kids, but this is a movie that I watched so much when I was a kid. It's based off a book, Roald Dahl. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but Roald Dahl's The Witches. Like I said, it's witches, and there's some kind of weird elements to it. You might get a little scared as a kid, but it's got that kind of witchy feeling. The kids kind of triumph over evil sort of thing. But it's pretty dark for a kids movie. But if you can get your hands on it, I don't even know if it's out on DVD or anything like that. But The Witches, if you haven't seen it, and you maybe have a little bit younger kids, maybe almost 10 years old, that's a great, great, great movie. The Witches, they might like that one. And then kind of continuing on with the old movies, I don't want to bring this one up like kind of in the middle of it, but I think everybody has seen it, and it's going to transition into another movie, I guess. But Evil Dead 2 is tied for first place with my favorite horror genre, and I'll tell you why. Sam Raimi is a genius when it comes to comedy horror. Now, you may not think they go together, but he balances it so well where one moment you're laughing and it feels appropriate for the movie, and then all of a sudden it gets scary. You have a scary scene. It may not look so good now. It may seem a little bit campy, but still you get that kind of fear element, and then it goes back to being funny, and it's the transition to me is perfect, and nobody really has done the comedy horror, in my opinion, as well as Sam Raimi. And to kind of transition to that, if you've seen Evil Dead 2, the next movie, Drag Me to Hell, another Sam Raimi movie, kind of a newer movie. But if you haven't seen Drag Me to Hell and you love Sam Raimi's older stuff like Evil Dead, the Evil Dead movies, it's the same thing. It implements comedy so well with the movie. You get your laughs, but yet you do have some scary moments. And although it is a newer movie, it still feels somewhat campy, which I absolutely love. He balances everything so well, makes it a modern movie, but it still feels like his older stuff that he's done. Okay, so we did Drag Me to Hell. The next one that I have is kind of another transition from Evil Dead 2. If you've seen Evil Dead 2 and you haven't seen Dead Alive, I'm trying to think of the other, Brain Dead. So it's Dead Alive or Brain Dead, depending upon where you are. This is actually one of Peter Jackson's very first films. It's an early 90s horror kind of possession monster movie sort of thing, but what makes this movie so special is the special effects. The gore is just so over the top, just gross, disgusting. It's funny, and it's made to be that way. It's made to give you a little bit of that kind of that dread, scary feeling, but making these just gory scenes just absolutely outlandish and just wild and just so funny, and the special effects are just so good. It's a movie that I don't hear people talk about a lot, but Dead Alive, I can't recommend that one enough. If you like just kind of campy horror movies with great special effects, just a stupid storyline, Dead Alive is so good. Now, I'm kind of a late 80s, 90s kid, so I don't know too much about old horror. I haven't watched it enough. And I do need to go back and maybe watch some more of the Universal monster movies, because I personally haven't seen very many of them. But if we're going to go back even further, one of the best old school horror movies that I can recommend is Dawn of the Dead. George A. Romero has kind of had his ups and downs with his movies, but Dawn of the Dead, the setting is perfect. It only builds on what he's built in his zombie universe. And if you're looking for more of an old school zombie movie that's really easy to find, Dawn of the Dead is absolutely good. The remake, maybe not as good as the first one, but the remake is still okay if you're just looking for a zombie movie. But the older Dawn of the Dead is an extremely, extremely good movie. Now, if we're going to transition into something, I'm a big fan of monster movies. Now, monster movies not necessarily are kind of Halloween-themed movies, but I feel like a monster in general has its place in Halloween. So the movies I'm talking about are the movies like Alien. Alien is such a good movie. You can really watch that at any time of the year. But if you're looking for a monster movie, I can't think of any other movie that represents a monster that is terrifying as Alien. That movie does such a good job of just making you feel terrified. It's dark, it's claustrophobic, and the monster is just perfect because you slowly learn about this. The build-up in that movie is perfect. So if you're looking for a monster movie, I can't recommend Alien enough. If you haven't seen it, shame on you, but you're probably going to hate cats for the rest of your life if you do watch the Alien movie. Another monster movie that is so good to me, and like I said, it may not be necessarily a super good Halloween movie, but if you're looking for a good Halloween monster movie, Jurassic Park. Now, that's kind of a weird selection as far as a Halloween movie goes, but as far as a monster movie, what's more monstrous than Hollywood over-the-top dinosaurs? Now, I watch this movie probably once or twice a year because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Um, but like, if you haven't seen it in a long time, everybody's seen Jurassic Park, to be honest. Everybody's seen it. But if you come back and rewatch it 10, 15 years later on Blu-ray where the audio's enhanced a little bit, the terrifying moments where the dinosaurs are around, I wouldn't say it's scary, but it's a thriller. Your heart rate gets beating and you're you get so involved in the movie, and I don't know. Monster movie, Jurassic Park. Like I said, you've seen it, but I encourage you to rewatch it if you're looking for a good monster movie for the Halloween season. So now, if we're going to transition into, let's say you don't like scary. Let's say you have kids. Let's say you do want to watch a Halloween movie that is not so scary and you just don't like to be scared. One of the best movies, one of the best examples of this, and I know pretty much everybody watches this movie around Halloween time, but if you haven't, you need to watch Hocus Pocus. Even if you watched it as a kid, you thought it was stupid. As an adult, you go back to it, and I think it's just as enjoyable. It's a movie you can watch with your kids. They're not going to be frightened, and I think they'll enjoy it. Everybody gets a little bit, depending upon your age range, will enjoy it, I think, in different ways. And another movie, if you're kind of just looking for a laugh, that's maybe not so scary, but you kind of want to stick to the zombie genre, one of the best zombie movies that I can think of is Shaun of the Dead. British movie. If you haven't seen it, it's kind of that stupid comedy. It's kind of the British comedy, so you might not think it's very funny, but if you want to watch a zombie movie and maybe laugh a little bit and in no way be frightened, Shaun of the Dead is an amazing movie. It's very funny, it moves very slow, it's a very close movie. You don't really go anywhere in the movie except like a few blocks, but it's very funny, and it's definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen Shaun of the Dead. And if we want to go back a little farther with the maybe not so scary, funny Halloween movies, Young Frankenstein. Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks together is an amazing combination. And what do? You get Young Frankenstein. It is so funny. I don't want to say it's on par with like Dracula Dead and Loving It, but I can kind of group those two together. Young Frankenstein and Dracula Dead and Loving It are just two very funny, maybe more old school kind of horror Halloween movies you guys might really enjoy. So yeah, that was kind of my rundown of a handful of kind of Halloween movies maybe you guys want to check out if you haven't checked them out before. I definitely recommend those movies. I am leaving out two of my favorite movies because while they are horror movies and might be good to watch for Halloween, I don't consider them Halloween movies. And I'm going to tell you why. My favorite horror movie that was grouped together with Evil Dead 2 is Gremlins. Now, Gremlins is pretty scary. It's a very dark movie, but let's be real. It's a Christmas movie. You have to watch Gremlins during Christmas. You can't watch it during Halloween because it, deep down at its roots, needs to be watched at Christmas. And my second movie is Nightmare Before Christmas. That one's kind of hard too because I love that movie, and you could watch it for Halloween with a kid. Like if you're looking for a kids movie, Nightmare Before Christmas would be good. But again, at its roots, it is a Christmas movie, Halloween themed, but it's a Christmas movie. So Gremlins, one of my favorite horror movies, tied for first, and Nightmare Before Christmas, two of my favorites, but I can't add them to the Halloween list because they're Christmas movies. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you go and watch some of these videos, and I hope you guys have a wonderful fall and a wonderful Halloween season. There you go. Enjoy Nintendo 64 Funtime. Always